I know you come from a board game family. Which board game are you the best at?
All of them. I'm the best player at any board game. If anyone sees this video, would like to challenge me in any board game that I know how to play, and if I don't, I will learn. I will beat you.
Sit down with Quinn Mathews today. Quinn, I know I've seen like a million different times you've talked about your upbringing and your youth and how it seems like Southern California is pretty important to you and how you grew up. Like, what were you like as a kid? What were you doing?
Yeah, I mean, SoCal is definitely, the best place in the country in my opinion, so obviously going to rock that heritage forever. But, where I grew up, my family, my friends, has kind of molded me into the person I am today. Obviously, you have other things throughout your life and the journey that, we've all taken to get to this very point. But youth, childhood, like I said, SoCal, the roots, that's just, who I am as a human being.
We've weirdly had a lot of Southern California guys on the show, Ragic and Church, and but some of those guys like kind of took advantage of that as a kid. They kind of like played other sports or they did other things. Like Church used to skate and surf and all this kind of stuff. Were you ever dabbling in that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of SoCal is you can play basically year round and you can play everything year round. So I played baseball, basketball, and soccer basically throughout my life, and then in high school just played baseball and soccer. But I mean, like I said, it's the best weather, it's the best environment, and for the most part, we always have the ability and access to sports and stuff like that. So if you want to play something, normally you can find a place and a team to play with. So it's awesome.
When did you start playing baseball?
Really young. I think I was probably 4 or 5, like T-ball, Little League type stuff, and that's just who I played with. I played with that same group of guys basically up through the end of high school, and a couple of us are still playing now.
And for you, when was it like, all right, especially like you said, you're playing multiple sports. So when was it like baseball starting to kind of be the pathway right now?
I think it was probably about 13 or 14 when it was, honestly, it's just because all of my best friends were still playing baseball. They all had kind of stopped, started to specialize. I was still playing, soccer and basketball a little bit. But, like I said, they started specializing, and I was like, I'm just going to play whatever they're playing because I enjoy playing with these guys. So it ended up working out that probably, I think I fully specialized not until my senior year. I was still playing soccer up through, senior year of high school. But it was pretty apparent, about 15, 16 that, if I was going to go to college, it was probably going to be for baseball.
Was it kind of difficult to give up those other sports for you?
Yeah. I mean, I still think to this day I was a better soccer player than baseball player. But, like I said, my friends weren't playing as much soccer, and it was almost all baseball. So, my life took the baseball journey, but I'm self-proclaimed a better soccer player.
That was a pretty good circuit down there too, right? Like soccer-wise for high school?
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, again, it's some of the best sports and athletics in the country. And, SoCal soccer is pretty decent for sure.
What position did you play?
I played center back in high school, was a forward my whole life. And then, my freshman year, they needed some center backs. And I was like, yeah, I'll go play. Why not? And played the next 3 years and enjoyed it, loved it.
Did anyone ever like, hey man, you kind of got to push away from these other sports, or was anything like that? Coaches like, we don't want you to be playing multiple sports year round?
Yeah, it was pretty apparent early on that, like I said, the specialization about, I'd say 13 or 14 is when kids really start to specialize and start to go into only that one sport track. But my parents were hard on, I wasn't going to play baseball year round. They wanted me to rest the arm for, 3 to 4 months at a time. And that's where it was not really an option. It wasn't a conversation. They wanted me to, meet other people, use other muscles, and just develop different sets of skills that, ultimately have probably helped me translate baseball long term. So, it wasn't really much of a conversation playing 12 months a year of baseball with my parents.
What was baseball like for you? Like you said, you had friends playing and stuff like that. Like, was it kind of just something you did, or was it kind of like engulfing your whole life?
It was honestly just something I kind of did. I loved sports. I love the competition. I love anything that I can compete in. And, sports is arguably the truest form of competition in the world, where it's you versus me, my team versus your team, basically. Like, let's battle it out and see who wins. So I think it was just ingrained to, again, who I am as a human being and a person, which is just super competitive. And like I said, baseball is honestly probably the most competitive you get. It's you versus me in a team sport. So you got to love it for that reason.
I know we've mentioned a couple of guys, but did you get a chance to play with Church or against Church and Ragic or any of those guys?
Yeah, so actually Churchy and I played together, I think our first tournament when we were 9. I don't think we really knew each other all that well, but we were on the same team, evidently. We were actually talking about it the other day. So I played with Churchy, never crossed paths with Rajic, which is kind of odd, being as close as we were. Played with McGreevy for, 3-4 years. We're pretty close. We're about 15, 20 minutes apart. I'm trying to think who else. I think that's probably it.
At least in the Cardinals system.
Yeah, at least in the Cardinals system. I mean, there's a ton of SoCal guys that, Andre Granillo.
Oh, Granillo.
So played with him, but, yeah, there's
That's
a lot
crazy.
of us from SoCal.
So from McGreevy, how close of friends were you guys? Would you talk at all, or was text you when he got drafted? Anything
No. We knew each other pretty well. We played some club ball, and we also we weren't rival high schools, but we didn't like each other for sure. And we used to beat McGreevy up pretty good in high school. Not him specifically, but the high school team where we beat him up pretty good. But he was always a stud, and he'd give it to us for 6 or 7 innings, and it was how do we find 1 or 2 runs to try and beat him.
By your senior year, like you said, you're leaving the other sports and it's baseball time. How heavily were you being recruited at that point, if at all?
I was already committed going into my senior year. I committed relatively late, I would say. There's the rule changes now, which I think are phenomenal, just because it gives kids time, longer to develop, where you can't start talking or I think committing until your junior year. But back when we were going through the process, which is almost 10 years ago now, which is a crazy thought, we were kind of allowed to do whatever. The coaches couldn't contact us, but we could contact the coaches. We could, commit basically verbally and stuff like that. So I was on a great club team, that had a bunch of studs that brought in a ton of eyes. I wasn't that good for the longest period of time. So a lot of those guys just brought eyes to me, which, I'm grateful for, all those guys to this day. But I was getting recruited a decent amount, I would say. It wasn't really until going into my end of my junior year. I mean, I was committed at that point, but it wasn't that's when I kind of started to gain a little more traction. But, like I said, I was blessed to commit to Stanford in November, 2 days before Thanksgiving of my junior year.
I know Stanford was the goal from pretty much as early as you could think of, right? Mm-hmm. Were other schools even close to prying you away from that?
So growing up, I actually wanted to go to UVA. That was the dream. And for whatever reason, my whole life I was like, I'm going to go to UVA. I'm going to be a Cavalier. The baseball team was great, going to the World Series, winning national titles. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be a Cavalier. And for whatever reason, one day I woke up, and I don't remember the day, but I was like, I'm going to Stanford. And it had just flipped kind of on a dime, and it was all of a sudden, UVA was the dream, and now Stanford's the dream. And, like I said, I don't remember why, but just woke up one day, and I was like, I'm going to go be a Cardinal.
And the 2-2 from Mathews is swung on and missed. Got him with a slider. Down and away. Down goes Cummings.
You mentioned obviously going to Stanford, and there's no way you're ever going to escape this game. And the second I said, I know you're already thinking what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The 156-pitch game. I know you've talked about it to death, but 156 pitches, 16 Ks against Tennessee. I think
Texas.
Against Texas.
Yeah, Tennessee beat me.
I think the big part of this is because of the setting. Obviously, if it was a regular season game, it still would have made waves, but because of that setting.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched that game back?
I've never watched the game in entirety. I've had people send me clips and stuff like that, but it's kind of one of those games that, truthfully, I remember almost all of it. I think my brain was fried for 3 or 4 days after, just from the emotions of that game. And kind of like you're saying, it was a super regional game. We needed to win or we were going home. So there was a lot that was built up into it. Going into it, I knew it was going to be my last start at Sunken Diamond, no matter what. But it was whether we were going to get to play, I believe, on Monday. And I didn't want to let the team not get the chance to at least play on Monday, because we tended to be pretty good on Mondays. And yeah, so no, I remember most of the game, most of the at-bats, most of the pitches I threw. Don't remember all 156 of them, but I probably remember about 140 of them.
When people send you clips, are you trying to avoid it, or is it something that you just kind of just exists?
I think it's just one of those things that kind of exists. It's a moment in my life that, like you said, it probably will go with me forever, which is awesome. I mean, I think it was super cool that my coaching staff let me go out there and do that, and the team had, full faith in me to run out there, still going into the 8th and 9th inning. But I mean, it's like anything in baseball. You have your great moments, and then you could go pull up the clip from Tennessee, truthfully, in the World Series, where I didn't get the job done. The team lost and we went home. So there's highs and lows, and you just have to deal with them, unfortunately.
Would you want to watch?
Yeah, we
with
can watch it.
I would like to see your reaction to some of these pitches and kind of just take me through like what you're thinking through these moments.
Yeah. So early on, I mean, you're just trying to get settled into a game as a starter. Like I said, emotions were pretty high as a whole. We got one in the second, which is great. And then some of these guys were actually, this lineup was relatively old, and I thought this lineup was under-repped in terms of how good they were in play discipline and the lack of chase from a collegiate lineup. Like I said, they had a lot of, fourth and fifth year seniors, guys who had seen a lot of good arms, took really good and quality at bats. I had just given up a triple there, so I was pretty frustrated with myself. And then this next kid coming up hits a first pitch changeup, I believe, for a sac fly. Oh, we didn't show it. Here's Porter Brown.
Yeah, this is mostly just highlights.
Yeah, so, no, like I said, I remember most of this game. I remember, being extremely frustrated with myself. I think the kid's name was Jared Thomas, hit the triple off me. He was just a second rounder, good little player. We went fastball in and he jumped me. So I honestly remember the low points of this game a lot more than the high points, just because, those stick in my brain a little longer than the good ones do. Here's Jack O'Dowd, played with him.
At what point were you feeling like different that day? Or did you ever feel different?
No, I didn't really feel different. This kid actually got me. He hits a bomb off me in, I believe, the 7th or the 8th. He got me twice. He went 2 for 3 with a homer. But I don't think I felt different at any point in this game. It was kind of just, as a starting pitcher, you're trying to get to that like cruising altitude where you're just in that flow state of going and going. And, I'm giving you a little head nod there. So I think that was the end of the 5th. And I don't think I gave up a base runner after the 2nd or 3rd. So I was starting to, kind of feel like I was getting into my groove and, going to try and pitch us as deep into this game as possible. Did I think I was going 9? Absolutely. I always think I'm going 9, but normally you get pulled before that. So
are you like maybe not just even mentally but physically preparing to go a full 9 innings every time you take the mound then?
Yeah, absolutely, especially in college. I think more so there where it was, Friday night guys, we were all going to get pushed a little bit harder just to save the bullpens, and especially in a situation like this where, you're hopefully going to play the next day and you don't want to give an old lineup a second look at a guy that you don't need to. And that's where, like I said, that's where the maturity of these guys, if it had been a really young lineup, I don't think I would have been as hard pressed to go out into the 9th. But this lineup was really old and it was a quality lineup that put together at bats and could be frustrating at this time where, like I said, you don't want to give them a second look at a guy, whether it be the best pitch is the changeup, the slider, the fastball. Like, you don't want to give a guy a second look at that if you don't need to.
Yeah, so because a lot of obviously is made of going through the lineup a third time, especially now. Like we're learning more and more about how that can be detrimental to a pitcher. Like this is kind of around that time when that conversation is really starting to take off. Is that even in your head at all, or?
No. I still think at this point, I might not be the best arm available at that point at 140 plus pitches, 150 plus pitches, but I knew I was good enough to hopefully still get weak contact and get guys out at the end of the day. And that's where you don't need to be the best to get people out, but you're trying to again save the bullpen and get you into Monday. And at this point, I was pretty exhausted, to be honest with you.
When there was a moment in the 9th when your head coach came out to almost pull you, and I saw you talked to, I think it was the NCAA after the fact, about you later learned that he was being booed the whole time. Yeah. So I'm assuming you didn't hear it at all in the moment then? No,
I didn't hear anything. Like I said, I was honestly so frustrated with myself that I gave up the double to Jack O'Dowd the previous at bat. It was I think a 2-2 change. And I just left it up, and he put a good swing on it, good for Jack. But frustrating because I was like, I didn't need to go with that pitch in that spot. It could have been better and probably strike him out or at least get soft contact. And again, it was that 9-hole coming up who had already been 2 for 3 off me, had put together 3 quality at bats, and yeah, I didn't hear anything. I was just so frustrated in my own head at that moment that I even gave up a double. And I didn't think, with 8 2/3 at that point, I was even in the realm of being pulled, but I also didn't know my pitch count. So sure. I kind of understood that.
So, but in those moments where it's late in the game or whatever, or you're feeling a little more locked in or however you want to describe it, is that something that happens to you? Like, do you tune out everything that's going on, or how was that a unique moment that you couldn't hear that?
Yeah, I think the game will dictate where you need to be at physically and mentally. And in a situation like that, it was just I mean, you're basically just like, I need to get outs. The offense had put up 8 runs for me, and they found, I think, 3 more there in the 9th. So it was like, I just need to get 3 outs and get this game over with so the guys can get reset and basically get ready to go tomorrow. So it was kind of just tune everything out and just get the job done at the end of the day. And, again, I didn't know what my pitch count was at, being at 150, and then him telling me afterwards he was actually supposed to pull me. And that, Brant, who's one of my best friends on the team, was ready to go out of the pen. And I was like, there's no shot. You're pulling me out of this game right now. I'd gotten frustrated with him. It was our last weekend of the pack. It was at Wazoo. I think I was through 7 1/3. And I wasn't very sharp, but I was good enough. And he came out and pulled me. I was like, what are we doing? I'm at 105 pitches. He's like your day's over with. You're done. And I was basically tell our head coach to come get me. And I was like, hey, I'm not coming out of this game. If you want to walk back in there and have Esky come get me in this moment, let's basically do that. Yeah. And he was like, all right, and then walked back in and just said we're calling more pitches. So that's all it was.
I want to talk a little bit about everything else that happened after that. You mentioned that it was kind of more of a physical or a mental toll, right? Because physically, you're throwing on any given day, even if you're not going 150, whatever. Yeah. Warm-up pitches, pregame, sure. There's a lot of throwing going on regardless. So what was it like, the next morning? What was the next morning like?
So I didn't sleep that night. It was a really long night. My brain basically couldn't shut down. That's why it was so physically taxing. I think I probably got legitimately 15 minutes of sleep, if that, just closing my eyes and trying to sleep, but couldn't. So the mental side of it, I was completely drained the next day. But it was also game 3, and it was an elimination game to go to the World Series. So it wasn't too hard to get fired up that day, be the cheerleader, the rah-rah guy if needed that day. So that's where I think it was hard, because the next 2 or 3 days you're so excited and so fired up to go back to Omaha and stuff like that, where the body's going to be tired. I believe I lifted. I played catch. I told them I was good to go. I was good to go the next day. In all reality, if they needed me to, I probably could have gotten 3 outs. The second day after, there's no shot. My body was completely torched. The brain was fried. I basically didn't sleep again. So it was a long 3 or 4 day stretch where I wasn't getting much sleep. The body was basically trying to reset because it had been pushed to its limit ultimately. But, had to do it for the squad.
What do you remember about the College World Series experience just in general? When you think back to Omaha, what's the one thing that really sticks out to you?
I pitched poorly 2 out of 3 years, unfortunately. My sophomore year, when I was really bad, was actually my best outing against Vanderbilt. I wish I'd been better because I probably would have gotten a little more leash. And I think I would have gotten out of that inning. My teammate Polish comes in and throws a good slider, and the kid hits it up the middle, and that happens. But I think if I'd pitched better my sophomore year, I'm probably still in that game against Vanderbilt and not getting pulled in the 6th. And then my junior year, I just wasn't very good against Auburn. The team was hot. Brody Moore hit a sac fly off me on a fastball in. He claims he knew it was coming. There's no way. But, that Auburn squad beat me up pretty good. I lost us that year. And then Tennessee put together some at-bats, and they had some good arms. So it was a rough experience. Obviously, grateful to go 3 straight years, and wouldn't have changed it other than maybe winning a couple more games. But like I said, I wasn't very sharp in the World Series, so that's something that will live with me forever, unfortunately.
I think you're being too hard on yourself, man. It's tough, and I know you're a competitor, and that's always going to stick in you. But like you said, getting to go there is just it's such a bad odds. The odds are so insanely stacked against you to even get to that moment. It's crazy that you even get to experience, like you said, 3 years in a row. That's awesome. I know it ended up being a little sour, but we've talked to Jimmy Crooks about the same situation. He was right there too.
Jimmy had it even worse, I'd say. Not worse, different.
It was tough. It was tough for him too.
Where it was, they're 1 game away from winning a natty. We went 0-2 twice and had an infamous wild pitch from one of my good friends, Brendan, my sophomore year. But yeah, it's definitely hard. And, like I said, being a competitor, I take blame for definitely my junior and my senior year sending us home. And then I'll take some blame too, even for my sophomore year where, if I had been better that day, we're probably still playing. So it's a hard one to swallow.
2022, you end up getting drafted by Tampa, 19th round. I know that you kind of sat on it for a little bit, thought about the decision. But what was the ultimate decision? Why did you turn that down?
I was bitter to be honest with you, with the way I thought the draft had gone and how the MLB teams had viewed me. I'm grateful for the Tampa Bay Rays. I've told them that every time I've talked to them. You know, I'm grateful they gave me that opportunity. It's a special opportunity to get drafted, you know, not just once, but in my case twice. But the Rays were the team, and they believed in me more so my junior year than anyone else. They got actually pretty close to the dollar figure I was looking for in the 19th, and that's like the weirdest process is like that negotiation process isn't over for people until August 1st, I believe, is when like you either have to sign or you're basically done. So the Rays were just trying to pool as much money to get up to like that, I think 5% threshold, and they were trying to get me to sign, and I'm grateful for the Tampa Bay Rays and that staff and the people that believed in me there. But like I said, I was pretty bitter with how it all went. I thought my junior year was different than the way people had looked at it, you know, coming out of the pen, starting, you know, going 9 wins and 9 saves. I thought that was pretty unique, but teams didn't view it like that. And then I went back and looked. I'm like, all right, I walked 51 people. Like my whip's extremely high. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. So I think it was just me going back, trying to prove a point my senior year. Like, hey, you missed on me like the first time, and now I'm going to bet on myself and find out what happens my senior year. But, you know, if I can control what I can control, which is throwing a baseball, I think I'm going to be viewed differently a little.
"11 strikeouts for Quinn Mathews through 6 scoreless innings here at Hammons Field tonight."
My senior year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it ended up working out for you. You jumped a massive, and you ended up getting the St. Louis route here. And so far, I mean, it's been super rapid, right? Like, I got to imagine it feels rapid. Like, does it feel rapid that you've been kind of climbing? I know, obviously, going back for the senior year and all that, you're more seasoned than other guys who get drafted.
Sure.
But has it felt fast so far?
It's felt, I would say, I don't know if it's felt fast. I don't know any different. That's the problem. I mean, you're around guys and you see people and stuff like that. Like, everyone's journey is different to the big leagues, or if they ever make it there. You know, hopefully we all get there. That's the ultimate goal for every single one of us. But no, I don't think it's felt rapid. It's just like you said, I'm a little older. I got drafted as a senior. Most of these guys are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old when they're getting signed. I was 22 going on 23. So I think my course to getting here was different, and that's just the same thing that I've done so far in the minor leagues. It's just going to be a little different than everyone else.
When you signed, were you anticipating a quicker rise in that regard then?
I don't think you can anticipate anything with baseball. That's what I've learned going through the draft process twice and talking to teams, talking to orgs, and seeing how, you know, everyone's situation's different. I've been fortunate where I was surrounded with guys that went pro out of high school, out of college, that were good friends of mine, and, you know, seeing everyone's journeys and that everything is different for every single person. So you can't really anticipate anything in baseball. And when you do start doing that, baseball will make sure to knock you back down and say, hey, you know, I'm in control here. You're not. Go out and do your thing, and everything else will take care of itself.
Part of this rise through the system all the way here to the AA level has been the futures game, which I know you've talked about. And a little thorough line of that story has been about you not having some sort of reaction or whatever reaction that somebody wanted you to have or whatever.
Sure.
But now that that's passed and you did it and you went to Arlington and you pitched well and the whole thing happened, like, now that we're a little removed from it, like, how do you view that experience now?
The futures game was awesome. I got to meet a lot of guys who I actually played against in the World Series the year before or 2 years before. A lot of these high school guys who, you know, I'd met in spring training or I'd heard of and stuff like that. And it's a special group of guys that are extremely talented and extremely gifted in their own respects. And just to get an opportunity like that to represent St. Louis as an organization, as a minor league system, you know, I was bummed Tink didn't get to go. It would have been really fun to have another Cardinal there, like Tink specifically. But, I mean, it was a good time, and I loved it and enjoyed it, and the hospitality. And, you know, I love Texas. It's a great state. They put on a good show. And, you know, like I said, I was just grateful and blessed to get the opportunity to go represent St. Louis out there.
Development-wise, I read that after your sophomore year, you go to the Cape, and that you kind of had to reframe your mindset to pitch more to contact. How has that resulted now in being like, would you have kind of become the strikeout guy like that? How does it go from I need to change the way I pitch to contact, leading to strikeouts?
So the idea of like pitching to contact is just like throwing everything in zone. So if your stuff is good enough, you're eventually either going to get swing and miss or you're going to get takes. and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, you need to throw more strikes, specifically at this level. And I've even seen that in like AA. Like we can talk about like strikeouts and stuff like that. But I mean, evidently AA, I haven't had as much success just because I don't think I've pitched in zone enough. So that's where it's like you can't be afraid of, giving up a soft barrel or, having a guy hit a 1-2 pitch because maybe you threw it a little too much in zone. And that's something you can go in and look at and be like, all right, I could have been a little more fine here. Or I could have been a little more aggressive here with an 0-2 pitch or a 1-2 pitch. Because, in a season like this, where you look at bats and pitch counts and innings and stuff like that, you're trying to be as efficient as possible. And these guys have really good eyes. And if you're not effectively in zone and out of zone, they're either just going to take until you walk them or they're just going to hit a mistake. And that's where it's a very fine line between being too aggressive and not being aggressive enough. And if you pitch to contact, then you're going to get swings. And if you get swings, hitting is extremely hard. That's why I don't hit anymore because it is extremely hard. So and that's just where like the mindset of, I think, attacking and not being afraid of contact was the biggest adjustment that I had to make, because when you try to punch people out, you're not going to be able to do it because you're just going to be throwing everything as hard and as nasty as you can. And like I said, these guys are too well trained. Their eyes are too good that they're not going to chase everything.
So when it comes to strikeouts, then, like I said, I'm sure you know where you're at and the numbers and all that stuff, and they look awesome. And of course, as a fan, like that's what you want to see. You want to see home runs. You want to see strikeouts, right? That's exciting stuff. What do you think about the strikeouts? Like, is that a point of pride for you? Is it something that you kind of brush off? Where is your head at when you're coming at right now with the strikeouts?
An out is an out. It doesn't really matter how you get it. I think the biggest thing is just putting together quality starts. Like if you asked anybody, I think, and you said, hey, you can go 6 innings, give up 3 runs or less, give up, a couple hits, couple walks, and you strike out 0, 1, or 2 guys, or you can go out there and throw four innings, you strike out 11 guys, but you give up 8 runs, walk 6 people, and get hit around. Like, an out is an out, and that's how I view it. And that's where I think the emphasis on a strikeout, there's definitely, a reason for it, just because especially at the big league level, you do need swing and miss, and you do need to strike people out because those guys are too good. If they're hitting the ball enough, they're eventually going to hit a couple hard, and that's when you get into trouble. But I don't think the strikeout, I don't pay that much attention to it. In my eyes, my next outing, I have 0 right now. So it's just go out there, put together a quality start for the team, and give the team the best chance that I can to win a baseball game.
The 2-2 is on the inside corner. Got him looking. Strike 3 called.
All right, Quinn, we got one last thing for you here today. We do this on every episode. We do the Cardinals Quickfire, so I have a whole bunch of questions that I'm just going to throw at you, and they have nothing to do with each other, so let's rock and roll. Obviously, we talked about the 156 pitches. Mm-hmm. You've also gone up to 180 before. How many pitches do you think you could throw before your arm fell off?
In one game?
In one game. Like, what do you think is the absolute max?
240.
Let's never get there.
Let's
never have to get to that point. I read a story that you challenged a 30-year-old middle school teacher to a 1-mile race and barely lost, to my understanding.
No, I think he dusted me, Mr. Coppus, wherever you are. Yeah, he used to beat me in basically everything. He was a physical specimen.
Is that the only time you've ever challenged an adult as a child to some sort of thing?
Absolutely not. As a kid, I always thought I was sweet and would challenge basically anyone to anything. Like I said, Mr. Coppus was a good sport, and he used to put up with me. We used to play basketball at lunch together, and then, we were definitely talking a little bit, and I was like, hey, we're running the mile today. Like, let's go. And he was like, I'll put my tennis shoes on, and he dusted me. I think he beat me by probably 20 seconds.
You were, what, like 13? 12?
13 or 14.
Yeah. I think it's okay if someone twice your age beats you.
Absolutely not. He embarrassed me. It was bad, but whatever.
What is the first thing you do in the morning?
Wake up.
And then? I'd hope you'd wake up. Otherwise, you have problems.
Probably check my phone, see if I've missed anything, and then try and get out of bed and shower and brush teeth.
What's the last thing you do before bed?
Probably say goodnight to my family and my girlfriend and my friends.
So I feel like guys have lied about this. I don't know. I have no way to check these things. Mm-hmm. Rajic said his last at bat he homered. TK said last at bat he homered. Mm-hmm. What happened in your last at bat?
Rajic definitely did homer in his last at bat. Okay. He's got video of that.
Okay.
TK might. I might call, some cap on that one. I don't know if that kid could swing it. I definitely got out my last at bat.
Okay.
We lost. Huntington Beach, 2-1.
It's a good school.
Jake Vogel.
He's good. I remember Jake Vogel.
Yeah, he's okay.
Do you have a dream car?
No.
That sounds like a no then. So you're not a car guy.
Not at all. Don't really care. As long as it gets me from point A to point B and it doesn't break down too often.
What is the fastest you've been clocked?
Running.
Throwing. Running too, I guess. I
have no clue. Probably like 97 or 98, I think, this year.
I think you've hit 99 this year, actually.
I don't think I've hit 99.
Okay.
I would like to see that if you have that.
I thought I saw something that said in Palm Beach you hit 99 this year.
No, I think maybe 97 or 98.
Okay. I know you come from a board game family. Which board game are you the best at?
All of them. I'm the best player at any board game. If anyone sees this video would like to challenge me in any board game that I know how to play, and if I don't, I will learn. I will beat you.
Okay. 2 more. I know after the 22 draft, you went with your family to Yellowstone. I love Yellowstone, my favorite park in the country.
Great spot.
What is the best spot for you in Yellowstone?
What is the best spot in Yellowstone?
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's literally no wrong answer here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name. It's like it's one of the bigger attractions. I can't think of the name right now.
You got Morning Glory, Crystal Geyser,
No.
Yellowstone Falls.
No, it's like almost like an infinity pool, but it's like a rainbow.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm talking
I know what
about?
you're talking about. I don't know the name.
I can't think of the name either. I have photos of it on my phone.
Yeah.
But I remember just like going out there, and we got really lucky because they said it would get like kind of like misty-ish at times, where it'd get like, obviously with all the geysers and stuff like that, where it wouldn't be that clear, but we got to see this pool and it was like a rainbow, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Awesome. All right, last one, dude. I asked a couple guys this, and they always have a pretty good answer.
Yeah, sure.
One batter, alive or dead, you want to face. You get one chance to show your best stuff against whoever you want. Who are you taking on? Tink said Barry Bonds.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds like a Tink answer.
TK said Trout.
Okay.
So where are you at?
I think I've got 2 answers.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go Madison Bumgarner or Ichiro Suzuki.
Those are wildly different.
Yeah.
I would understand if you're saying like face off starter versus starter against Mad Bum,
honestly, maybe actually I'm going to change Mad Bum. I'm going to go to Greinke and Ichiro.
Wow, for drastically different reasons.
Well, I mean, they both can swing it.
Yeah.
So they're both, one's left-handed, one's right-handed. Both really good hitters. So
I think Ichiro's going to be a little bit tougher to face.
I don't know. Greinke's pretty good. If Greinke ever sees this or Ichiro ever sees this, let me know. I'd be more than happy.
All right, Quinn Mathews, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me today.